I'm Frank Garza, and welcome to Here and Abroad, a podcast that follows the U.S. men's national team and their player pool across Europe, MLS, or wherever else they play their club football. On today's show, we're going to preview the USMNT's upcoming friendlies against Colombia this Saturday, June 8th, and Brazil the following Wednesday, June 12th. Once these two friendlies are complete, the U.S. will only be 11 days away from its opening match of the Copa America. We're getting close. To help me today, I've invited Larry Henry Jr. to join the show. Larry is the managing editor and USMNT insider at SBI Soccer. He's also a writer for MLS and MLS Next Pro. Larry, welcome to the show.
Hey, Frank. Good to be back with you again, as always. Excited that we got some big games coming up. Obviously, like you said, Copa America right around the corner and some big friendlies coming up against Colombia and Brazil. So eager to be back with you. Excited to break it all down. And can't wait to get back to watching the U.S. back in action.
Yeah. And this is your first time. You've been on the podcast many times. This is your first time on as a married man because you were telling me you got married this weekend. So congratulations. Congratulations to you on that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's really exciting. Got the ring on and everything.
There's the ring.
So yeah, it's now it's glued to the finger. So yeah, thank you so much. And obviously thank you to everyone on Twitter and other social media platforms for all the messages. Nora and I can't thank everyone enough. It's just been really cool. Been on cloud nine the last couple days. So we're really happy. Really excited and, to start this new journey. And, definitely glad to be back with you as a married man on the show. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, that's great to hear. And I'm excited about these two upcoming matches. I think we have a lot to learn watching these two matches. When you look at the two friendlies coming up, what's the thing you're most interested to see, or the number one thing you'll be looking out for when the U.S. takes the field?
I think the biggest thing is just seeing the U.S. up against some different competition, right? Over the last year or so, it's been a lot of CONCACAF, a lot of, rivals, Mexico, Canada, Jamaica, Trinidad, with the exception of some other friendlies last fall against Germany, a lot of other teams in Europe and Asia. So this will be a good test, I think, for the U.S. Against some teams from South America. Colombia, dynamic team, really good in attack and transition. Same thing with Brazil, good at keeping the ball, good at creating chances. And obviously these, I think, won't be really important in terms of results, but the performance, Greg Berhalter has preached it a lot in the past of, we want to keep the performance levels high, get these guys playing at a high level. A lot of these guys coming into camp are coming off really good club seasons in Europe. So I think getting them back together is important. Getting the chemistry going again is important. And I think this is a great test for them against Colombia and Brazil. It won't be a pushover in either game, and then hopefully a pair of good results and performances ahead of the group stage of the Copa America, and what we hope is a title lift at the end, a deep run, and can knock off some of the best teams in South America.
Yeah, this will be a good test, for the U.S. And if the U.S. makes it to the knockout round of the Copa America, it's very likely they'll face one of these two teams in the first round. So it'll be good for them to get a look at them. The thing I am just dying to see is how the U.S., which option they end up using to kind of fill in for Sergiño Dest. So I mean, that hour before this first match, I'm gonna have my eyes glued to social media, trying to see when the lineups are released and get the first look on what lineup Berhalter rolls out, and from there I think we'll be able to tell what they're doing to kind of replace Dest. What are your thoughts on the most likely option you think we're going to see for Sergiño Dest's replacement in these two friendlies?
I think Greg Berhalter can go a number of different ways. I think we hinted at it in the last time we were together. But I just think, Joe Scally has to be the number one option right now in terms of at right back with Serginho out. Scally, excuse me, has had a busy season in Germany with Gladbach, played a lot. Right back, left back, kind of the right side of a back three. So I think he's your number one option. Really good defender, can get upfield, get some service into the box. Maybe not as much as Dest, but Serginho Dest is a one-time talent. So I think Joe Scally's the number one option, but I also think Shaq Moore is going to definitely see some time, right? He's in camp. He's a guy that's been under Berhalter before, an older player at 27 years old compared to Scally at 21. He has 9 more caps than Scally. Really more of a kind of a defender first than an attacking fullback, which I think might maybe give Scally the edge. But I still think that Shaq Moore is going to have a point to prove in this camp. And I think both guys will get their opportunity in these matches, whether it's, Scally starts against Colombia and then Moore starts against Brazil or vice versa, or they each get, 45 minutes against both teams. I still think that, we could see the possibility of Timmy Weah as like a right wing back. That's a role that we've seen him this past season with Juventus, and also Weston McKennie is kind of featured in that role. Those two have kind of, one subbed in for the other on numerous occasions with Juventus. I don't know if we see McKennie much at the right wing back role, but I think Weah more so, right? He's a winger and an attacking player and has the pace kind of to get back and defend as well. So there's a bunch of different ways Berhalter can go. I think if they go, 4 at the back, you're going to see Scally, you're going to see Moore. But if you do see any type of changing, whether it's like a 3 center back system and then, with wing backs, you could see Weah in that role as well. Maybe McKennie, I kind of doubt it. But again, these are those matches where Greg's going to be trying to look at every little thing, try every little scenario to get these guys ready for what's to come in Copa America.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Scally starts at least one of these matches, but I personally hope that we see at least one of the other options, just if nothing else, for like some experimentation ahead of the Copa America. What does it look like with Weah there? What would it look like with Musa or McKennie there? Berhalter also hinted at doing something with the center backs, whether that's playing like Chris Richards there or playing with the back three, like you mentioned. I would really like to see, I guess, because I'm not against Joe Scally being there. He's obviously a great player. I just don't know if I have the full confidence yet that the U.S. can be as good in attack with Joe Scally in there as they could be versus like some of these other options. I mean, it sounds like you're thinking Scally is the plan A. What do you think is number 2 between these different options? Between maybe putting Weah there, or Musa McKennie, or one of the center backs. What do you think is plan B?
I think the way transition kind of to a wing back might be the plan B. We know this team likes to attack, and I think right now there's just so many attacking pieces in this squad right now. It's kind of scary when you try to piece together, what's the best lineup, who could we see based off of, past appearances and with their form from the club seasons. I think if you want to get the most attacking players on the field, then maybe Tim Weah is that route as wingback, because then you're just kind of overloading, one side of the field with attacking players. Say you put him as a right wing back, and then say you have someone else higher upfield, Haji Wright, or we've seen him in a role at Coventry City as a winger. Maybe they put 2 forwards together, whether it's Balogun and Wright, or Balogun and Sargent, or Sargent and Wright. So it's going to be really fun, I think, these next 2 games to just see all the pieces together. I think the plan B, though, I do like the way as a wing back, because this team wants to attack and create chances, and sometimes that's a lot of what we see, right, on social media and sometimes in the broadcast. There's a lot of chances sometimes, or a lot of 45-minute spells where the U.S. is maybe held without a goal, or they miss some chances, and it's like, okay, let's change things up here. Let's we should be you could be dominating possession, but that possession doesn't ultimately mean anything if you're not really testing the goalkeeper. So yeah, I think it's going to be, if we're going to see the traditional four in the back system, I think you're going to see Scally. But if Greg decides to go with something different out of your picks, I think we're going to see that right wing back with Timmy Weah there to cause some havoc on the right hand side.
Okay. And so if, we're still used to seeing Weah play that right winger, position. If Greg does decide to put him, back as the right back or the right wing back, whatever, formation he uses, I mean, who do you see? Well, let's say he stays in a 4-3-3 and just decides to put Weah as a right back. Who would you see taking Weah's spot then on the right wing, and how would you see the front three changing if Weah does move to the back?
It's definitely tough, right? Because you're trying to see, okay, who can we shift around? I mean, obviously, the left side, you imagine that left wing's going to be Christian Pulisic. I mean, that's what he does with the national team. And then when you look at the striker and the right winger, a lot of those guys I think can interchange. Whether it's Balogun at the number 9, and then you put someone like. I know Haji Wright really hasn't played tons of like a right wing with the national team, but it's something that he's kind of flirted with Coventry City, and I think we've known Haji Wright in years past to just be a straight up striker, and this last year we've seen that versatility at Coventry, and it really caused problems for defenses in the championship and even Manchester United in the FA Cup semi-final. Just his kind of stature and ability to hold plays up, and also get service into the box, link up with his teammates. We've seen a lot of guys, right? I mean, Brandon Aronson could technically play the wing. Gio Reyna could play the wing. Malik Tillman could play the wing. I guess, Josh Sargent could play the wing. I don't know if we're really going to see that too much. Or same thing maybe with Ricardo Pepi. But I think you'll see a Haji Wright as a right winger, and maybe not drifting fully out wide, maybe kind of hinting more in the middle with Balogun at the striker position. Those two could maybe interchange and link up, and I think it's going to cause a lot more problems for the Colombian backline, the Brazilian backline, because then you have to shift defenders kind of in a more neutral position to deal with it. But again, it's all what I think Greg wants to do and what they've been working on the last week or so in camp. But I think, what we're starting to see is these national team attackers, forwards, these guys that we've kind of talked about in the number 9 mix, they're becoming more versatile. And I think that's just opening the door for so many more different scenarios where you could put a Timmy Weah as a right back and just kind of stick him there. And have him there, and then still have the confidence in a Haji Wright or a Josh Sargent, a Brandon Aronson, whoever, to create chances at right wing.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, you can see how putting just going with Scally allows things to be more or less kept the same, in terms of like formation, the other players on the field. But as soon as you move somebody, it starts to present all these different questions, and now you've disrupted this lineup that's been playing together. And so I'm really curious to see how much experimentation Berhalter is going to do. I have a feeling, because this is going to be such a long camp, there's 2 friendlies, then they'll have some more time before the Copa America. With all that time, I would think we'll see at least a little bit of experimentation. But that's what I'm so excited to see, when this lineup rolls out. Another thing I'm excited to see when the lineup rolls out is how he lines up the midfield. Okay, because our midfield, and this is a good thing, seems to be getting very crowded with quality. And we have a couple guys, Gio Reyna and Tyler Adams, that haven't played much the last couple months, and so they may be on a minutes limit. But you can see that Greg prefers to have those 2 in there as a starter. it's just a matter of, how's he gonna like handle their minutes. How are you thinking about the midfield, and what do you think is the most likely trio that we're going to see out there for these matches?
Definitely a lot of guys that could start the match, can come off the bench. I mean, like you said, that midfield core is just getting crowded, and there's even guys that aren't in this team right now that are going to likely be with the Olympic squad that could even have a nod. Tanner Tessman, Busio, some others, but. Yeah, I think again, it all goes back to what you were saying. There's two matches. There's a little bit of a gap in between, and then you have that longer gap until the group stage starts up. So you want to keep everyone fresh. You want to make sure there's no injuries. Tyler Adams, I think, is the big question mark, right? Because he hasn't played a whole lot this year. I think it's 5 games for club and country with Bournemouth and the national team this calendar year. Wasn't able to really play the last couple weeks of the Premier League season, and I think that was also just kind of a plan thing maybe as well, with Bournemouth being safe, just kind of save him and keep him healthy. So whether we see him in the starting lineup or not, we'll see. I don't think you have to risk Tyler Adams in the starting lineup in this match. I think would be maybe more beneficial to have him start against Brazil, a tougher game, tougher opponent, and he'll definitely be up for it. Which then opens up the question, who takes the Tyler Adams role in the starting lineup against Colombia. And that could be a bunch of different guys, right? I mean, Johnny Cardoso's had a really good season with Real Betis. He could drop into that role. We've seen McKinney in a deeper role, but I think you're going to see him kind of like, pressuring midfielders up higher in the field. Same thing with Yunus Musa as well. And then, again, it all depends, I think, on how Berhalter wants to set it up. If he wants to put Cardoso kind of in a deeper role and then trust, a McKinney-Musa partnership in midfield, I think, we're going to see, I think we're definitely going to see a lot of Malik Tillman. He's had a really great season with PSV. Was able to get his loan move turned into a permanent deal, which was awesome for him, rewarding after the season he had. But that's a guy, again, that we've talked about in the past that hasn't really translated those club appearances over to the national team. So that'll be another question mark to watch. Gio Reyna, with his minutes, he hadn't played a whole lot on loan at Nottingham Forest, but that didn't really stop him from having an impactful window in March in the Nations League. So I think you're going to see, whether it's at the number 10 role, I think you're going to see either Gio Reyna or Malik Tillman there to create chances. McKinney and Musa and Adams, those guys being, the workhorses, working hard for the midfield, winning possession. Cardoso as well. Luca de la Torre is another guy I think that's going to be with a lot to prove this window. A guy that's creative, but again, hasn't really translated those club performances over to the national team. So we'll see maybe him off the bench, and then Timmy Tillman, Malik's brother. I think she's had a really good first half of the season for LAFC. Only one cap, obviously, to date, which was earlier this year. But, I think he's going to be a guy that's in the mix and maybe trying to force his way into the final roster as well. So there's so many different ways this can go. I think if Adams starts, you're going to see Adams, McKinney, Musa all together. But if Adams doesn't start, maybe we see Cardoso in the Adams role, and then maybe, we see a McKinney Reyna partnership or a McKinney Tillman partnership, because again, like you said, you don't want to get anyone hurt, and there's bigger games on the schedule for sure than just these two, but these two are obviously important for the growth of this team.
Yeah, really interested to see how Musa plays a role in these two matches, because he seems to me to be maybe the guy a little bit that could get left out. I mean, I know he's been the mainstay there, but from what I've saw in the last window, I see Berhalter wanting to get Tyler Adams and Gio out there no matter what. And and maybe they can only go for 45 minutes, and then they're subbed off in this first matches. Maybe he just kind of works their minutes up over the course of like these two friendlies and the first couple Copa America matches. But I don't know. I see McKennie being there no matter what. So then is Musa just going to rotate? Is he going to like kind of back up Tyler Adams, or am I totally wrong? And we're going to go with this, MMA midfield that we went at for so long. I mean, my feeling is just that what I've seen Berhalter is that he thinks of like Tyler being in there as like a starter no matter what. And if he's healthy, he's going to be in there. But he's been kind of trending that direction with Gio as well. So it's, I don't know, he has a lot of decisions to make there. And maybe a lot of it's going to depend on how he sets up the team with, Dest replacement, whatever option he goes with there. But man, really excited to see this lineup come out and see how he lines up the midfield. And then one other position that it seems like we do talk about, every single window is, who's going to start at striker. And it seemed like Balogun had kind of a hold on that for the longest time. And now I don't think he has any type of like lead over anybody. What's your thoughts on, and I'm not saying I don't think he's going to be starting. I'm just saying like, I don't think he's the default anymore. What's your thoughts on who we could see as the starting striker when the lineups come out?
Yeah, it's going to be another tough kind of decision for Greg Berhalter and his staff, right? Because you have four guys now, and it's kind of the four guys that we have been wanting, hopefully, to see all together, because they're the top four in the pecking order, with Balogun, Haji Wright, Josh Sargent, and Ricardo Pepi. I think when you look at the long-term skill of these four guys, I think Balogun is in front of them. But again, if we're going off of what happened over the club seasons and what was going on there, I mean, Haji Wright has to be the number one guy. Just the goals he scored for Coventry City, his versatility, like we talked about, could float kind of as a winger or a second striker. Which is, again, it's funny enough too, because he's the oldest one out of those four guys at 26. So, but I think if we go with a three kind of forward attack, right, you're going to see Christian Pulisic on the left side. I think we're going to see Balogun as the number 9, and then we're going to see maybe Haji Wright at right wing. Those two can kind of link up, and that could maybe even drop Pulisic into midfield a little bit and kind of get an overload there. But looking at these four guys, right, Josh Sargent has a lot to prove, hasn't been in camp in a while, hasn't featured for the national team since the World Cup. And then the last two club seasons has had double-digit goals for Norwich City, overcame an injury in the first half of the season, and then was really on a tear this year, along with Haji Wright in the championship. So I think those two guys, if you're looking at the hot hand, I think those two guys are 1 and 2. Ricardo Pepi obviously has had a good season in terms of production, but maybe not a great season in terms of racking up the minutes, right? At PSV, wasn't able to play a whole lot, was a super sub in most cases, scoring goals, and which has kind of been his role a little bit over the last year or two with the national team. And I still think that's a great role for him, but obviously he's a competitor. He wants to be out there. He wants to start. So I think all four guys are going to be in the mix. If I had it on my case, if we're going with the front three, I'd go, Pulisic, Balogun, and Wright. But, again, it all depends on how Berhalter sets up the team. And I do want to see all four guys at least get kind of close to the same minutes, because then we can really break it down and look at these guys, because they all bring different skill sets, right? Wright is a physical guy, good in the air. Balogun is maybe more technical. Sargent, does a lot of that dirty running behind the back line and shows that versatility. And Pepi, the same way, doesn't really need a lot of chances to score. So they all bring a lot of different things to the table. And it'll be interesting to see who the odd man out is after these two games.
Yeah. So you're saying Pulisic, Balogun, and Wright. And is that the scenario where Weah is playing right back, or are you saying you'd put Wright in there over Weah?
I,
no
I would
matter what.
even I would even consider having right there, maybe to start. It depends, right? Because we obviously saw Haji right in the March window. He came off the bench against Jamaica, was really impactful. Had those two goals, and then he started the final. And maybe wasn't as impactful then, but still had a really good hardworking shift. I think confidence right now. I think the confidence might be more with Wright than it is Weah. Weah obviously, was in and out of the squad over the second half of the season. Maybe didn't play a whole lot, but again, he's been important to the national team as well. I think if you want a right winger that's really going to bomb down the right side and deliver service into the box, then that's Tim Weah. But if you want kind of a more physical option that could maybe cause some problems for an opposing left back, then I think it's Haji Wright. But I think the Haji Wright move again gives you more of that flexibility in a sense, because then you could we could see Pulisic drop into midfield and have kind of a four midfield tandem and have Balogun and Wright together, where it doesn't really work that much with, say, it was Balogun and Weah. Weah is kind of a natural winger, so. But yeah, it'll be interesting. And again, I think it touches back to what we said about the midfield. This forward core is just getting crowded now as well. These are the guys I think you're going to see for a long time. And then we just sprinkle in some of the guys from the Olympic team as well. And then too, you add in Gio Reyna's versatility as maybe a winger. Brendan Aronson. A lot of these guys can interchange.
Yeah. Well, there's going to be a lot to check out when this first lineup rolls out. I'm excited. Well, Larry, thank you so much for being on the show. I'll make sure and put links in the show notes to your X account, which is at lhenry019, and also to your work at SBI Soccer. But before I let you go, any final thoughts you'd like to share about these upcoming friendlies, or really anything else at all?
No, I'm all good. Thanks a lot again, Frank, for having me. Really appreciate it. Always good to catch up. Really excited for the next couple games. Pretty much this whole month, right? Just game after game after game. And it'll be a really good test, I think, for the national team with 2026. Not still a little far around the corner, but not too far, right? So, yeah, thanks a lot for having me, and eager to see what happens next over the next few weeks.
Thank you, Larry. And thanks to everyone for listening to Here and Abroad. If you enjoyed the episode, please share it with a fellow USMNT fan. I'm Frank Garza. You can follow me on X at FrankGarza007, and I'll be back next week with a new episode.